Good evening. It's Monday, February 25th, 2019. This is a very special edition of Teal Tinted Glasses. I'm Kevin Lacy, just me, Kevin Lacy, this evening, breaking down all of the trades that happened in the National Hockey League, the American Hockey League a little bit. It was a wild weekend, a wild day. Thank you for joining us, joining me. I guess my panelists are myself and I. Hi, Bearded Sharks Guy 661. Thanks for tuning in. I really appreciate that. Ian is at work right now. Hockey Jerk, I don't know where he's at, but I can kind of relay some of his thoughts because I did have lunch with him again today, just over the excitement of the trade deadline. The Sharks did something. If you were tuning in to Friday's podcast, whatever you want to call it, the last episode of Teal Tinted Glasses, I said I did not think the Sharks were going to do anything. And then I kind of changed my stance and thought the Sharks would get Michael Ferland from Carolina. Well, I was wrong in both counts because Gustav Nyquist is the new number 14 for the San Jose Sharks. I wonder how Puck Guy feels about that, since that's his number. And Ray Whitney, Jonathan Chichu, Dylan Gambrell was the most recent 14. Puck Guy, you need to be in the chat with these fine folks this evening. Tell us, what do you think about the new Sharks number 14? And for those of you not Puck Guy, tell me what you think anyway. You are basically the people that I will be relaying off of today, bouncing information off of. You don't have to listen to me if you don't want to. Then again, why are you tuning in if you don't want to listen to me, because it's just me. But it's going to be awesome. I'm going to try and keep it short, even though this intro is long-winded. Thank you, K-Bell. What's up, Kelly? And yes, of course, Bomb Squatter already alluding to something I will get to. Number 22 in the background. The Sharks also have a new number 22, and I'm very excited. But let's get off to Gustav Nyquist first off. Last evening, after the Sharks defeated the Detroit Red Wings 5-3, Gustav Nyquist scored for the Red Wings, and then Doug Wilson just decided, hey, you know what? You're coming on the plane with us to Boston. It's not the first time the Sharks have done this. I feel like it's rather common that the Sharks end up trading with around the deadline with a team they've just played. I remember Bill Guerin scoring a hat trick against the Sharks years ago, and then Doug Wilson saying, do that for us, dude. And he did it during the regular season. Playoffs, and I think there have been a couple other times, but yeah, Gustav Nyquist, Sharks didn't give a whole lot up for him, believe it or not. A second-round pick in 2019 and a conditional 2023 that will become a second, hopefully will become a second, if either the Sharks win the Stanley Cup, even reach the Cup Finals this year, or if they re-sign Nyquist in the offseason because he is an unrestricted free agent after the year. But a big win in my eyes for the Sharks. It's the first time in a long time that I don't really feel that the Sharks gave up any assets worth pining over. Last year, it's kind of by comparison. Last year, the Red Wings got a first, a second, and a third round pick for Tomas Tatar. And to me, Gustav Nyquist is a better player than Tomas Tatar. I don't know if there's some back rubbing going on here. Perhaps somewhere down the line, Doug Wilson's going to owe Ken Holland a favor. Or maybe I was kind of joking with Hockey Jerk earlier today that maybe this is all like Doug Wilson was the biggest advocate for helping Detroit get into the Eastern Conference after a decade of trying to do so. Maybe it was like, hey, remember when we gave you that lead vote to get you into the East? I don't know. It does seem like a little bit of robbery for the Sharks. But also when you think about it, it's kind of fair because Ryan Clough was traded for a second and a third round pick. Douglas Murray was, I believe, traded for a second and a third round pick. May have been just a second. I'm trying to remember. But a player like Gustav Nyquist, he's not going to blow the world apart. Like he's a solid player, a fast, speedy winger, loves handling the puck. He shoots with a plum. Right now, I think he's going to start out on a line with Joe Thornton and Kevin LeBanc, two players who refuse to shoot the puck. So if Nyquist is there, he's going to get that puck fed to him all day on that left side. So it's going to be really exciting. Let's see what you think here. Bomb Squatter, Mike Powell. Hey, what's up, Mike Powell? That's who Bomb Squatter is. Thanks for jumping in here. But in the meantime, Gustav Nyquist can really fill holes in a bunch of different lines. Like, he can really go up and down the lineup. I think he brings a lot of versatility. One of the things that the Sharks kind of lack is a winger who truly can play both sides. And I think Gustav Nyquist can absolutely do that. I think he'll start off with Thornton and Kevin LeBanc on the left side. Hockey Jerk and I were thinking it might be nice to see him on the right side with Evander Kane and Tomas Hertl at some point. Of course, Hockey Jerk is not a fan of Jonas Donskoi. I am, but I do admit I think sliding Jonas Donskoi down into the third line or even the fourth line, which I think is where he's at right now with Barclay Goodrow and Melker Karlsson, I think that suits his game better. And especially because Donskoi is a player who tends to wear down at times, I think lessening his minutes and lessening the burden on his body, particularly his shoulders, will really help him a lot when it comes to the playoffs. But Nyquist is in Team Teal. He's going to wear 14. Dylan Gambrell finally gets number 7 for the first time in ages. I feel like the Sharks are finally giving numbers to the players, the numbers that the players want. Finally, I don't know why it's such a big deal. I don't know why I get so irritated every time I see, like, Noah Gregor, 73. Josh Norris, you could have had 14, but we'll give you 21, and, you know, yada, yada. But that's a totally off-topic thing. Now, Gustav Nyquist, buyer beware a little bit, because this is his best season since 2014-15, which was his first full season in the league. I believe he had 27 goals that year. He hasn't come close to that since then. He had 28, I believe, might have been his second year, 27 the next year, and he's had one 20-goal season since then. It might be 2 this year. Right now he's got 16 goals in 62 games, so he's got time. Gotta think he'll put up 4 more at least. Hopefully he'll go on a nice little hunt for the back of the net like Evander Kane did when the Sharks got him last year. But yeah, thanks for thanks for the love for Kane, Hertl, Nyquist, because I do like that. You might even, you know, Peter DeBoer really likes to keep Thornton and Pavelski together. Right now they're split up, but you got to think at some point that Pavelski and Thornton will be back together, but I think Nyquist would really complement them well, kind of the way Marcus Sorensen did, because Marcus Sorensen, I thought, played very well with those two, but Nyquist just has a lot more offensive upside, and just the fact that he's been around in the league for a number of years, he really should be able to handle the rigors come playoff time. And he has to be motivated. You know, Evander Kane last year was motivated by the fact that he had never been in the playoffs this year. Gustav Nyquist has not been in the playoffs for a few years now that Detroit has been kind of in a rebuild for a while after the 25 years of making the playoffs. But yeah, Vince G, I am the newly crowned Teal Tinted Glasses Trade Deadline Foreseen champ. I'm not going to really say that I'm super proud of it, because most of my victories were from players I said would not move at the deadline. I did actually, as a panel, if you tuned into Friday's show, Teal Tinted Glasses 63, if you missed it, please subscribe. Get that little bell going for these impromptu shows like this one. But we did all successfully predict that Wayne Simmons would go to Nashville. We pretty much bombed everything else. I would like to claim that I claim credit for Derek Brassard going to Colorado today, because I did 3 weeks ago tweet that I thought he'd be a much better fit in Colorado than he would be in Vegas. But nevertheless, I decided to say he'd go to Vegas anyway. Yeah. But let's get around. I want to hear your guys' thoughts about Nyquist. If you want to give them, just you can. It can be as simple as I am so excited. Just send in your comments. I love it. And then I'm assuming that we will have a show at the end of the week. I don't know if I'm going to be on, which is part of why I wanted to do this show tonight. But Hockey Jerk and Ian will be back in action soon, and I'm sure they're going to want to talk about their thoughts on the trade deadline. So be sure to tune into that. But I am going to move on to other happenings in the league, and then I'll get back to the Sharks in a little bit. Never apologize for outforeseeing Hockey Jerk. Well, that is true. That is true. And in fact, I was trying to, okay, now I am jumping ahead. I was trying to find my comments on Jonathan Dahlen when I really wanted the Sharks to draft him in 2016. And I was looking at Pucknology Writers Room episode 3, which I believe was Hockey Jerk's podcast debut. And amongst a bunch of stuff where we clearly had no idea what we're talking about with Dylan Gambrell, I did say, oh, I love Braden Point. Oh, I love him so much. So foreseen, booyah. All right, so on to some of the other happenings. There were other trades to announce in the Pacific Division, most notably the biggest trade of the day, Mark Stone going from the Ottawa Senators to the Vegas Golden Knights. Yowza. That one's smarts if you're a Sharks fan, which I assume most of you are. Mark Stone, a 5-tool hockey player. I mean, there is not enough good things that how do you say it? Like, there aren't enough good things I can't say about Mark Stone. Like, he is just an incredible hockey player and a pretty good return. I know Hockey Jerk, he did say he thought that the return was a bit light for him. Erik Brandstrom is a no-joke prospect. I really feel he is the best prospect defenseman in the world right now. He is, when he was drafted, even before he was drafted, it was thought he would be the next Erik Karlsson. Funny enough, now he has a chance to become literally the next Erik Karlsson in Ottawa, because it was Brandstrom, Oscar Lindberg, and a 2020 second-round pick for Mark Stone and Tobias Lindberg. So a couple of Lindbergs switch teams. I assume they can just trade off jerseys and nobody will notice, especially because Oscar Lindberg has been scratched a lot lately for the Golden Knights. But Mark Stone is... he fills a huge void in that Golden Knights lineup. I didn't quite realize it. I knew they needed an upgrade in some places because, for example, James Neal went to Calgary in the off season and they never really filled his role, even though he hasn't done much for Calgary. He was a beast for the Knights last year. David Perron, another right winger who was not really replaced. So they had Riley Smith up there on the top line, who, if I recall, he has like 1 goal in his last 21 games. He would have made a great Duck, because even though the Ducks have won a couple of games lately, it still feels like they've only scored 1 goal in their last 21 games. So zing. But Mark Stone now slides into that top line. And really, I think this is going to help William Karlsson. William Karlsson obviously had his absurd year last year, with the 41 goals I think he had last year. I think this year's William Karlsson is more in line to what he really is. However, Mark Stone is going to draw all of the top defensemen to him, and that's going to open some things up for Mr. Alex Tuck, for William Karlsson, for pretty much all of the top 6 forwards there, depending on if Stone lines on line 1, line 2. Got to think it's going to be line 1 here to start. Just an incredible pickup. And again, last year, Tomas Tatar, first round pick, second round pick, third round pick. Mark Stone, first round pick, Eric Brandstrom, although I think he could be he would be like a top draft pick kind of thing. A second round pick, literally going to Ottawa, and Oscar Lindbergh, who I wouldn't give a third round pick for. So when you look at it like that, Mark Stone fetched less than Tomas Tatar did, in a way. You know, Brandstrom, of course, but that is drawing insanity, as if they needed any more in Ottawa. Vince G, excellent point. Nick Hague is no slouch, and that's why Vegas was able to stomach parting with Eric Brandstrom. Very true. In fact, I thought that if Vegas was going to deal for one of the top forwards in trade deadline hood, boy, that was a poorly constructed sentence. But anyway, I thought Cody Glass was going to be the piece that would move out. But Nick Hague has had a great year for Chicago in the American Hockey League. So is Eric Brandstrom. Patrick Williams could not say enough good things about Brandstrom this year in the A. I can't. But boy, he's going to have a lot on his shoulders for a young 19-year-old, I believe 19, maybe 20, because Ottawa just picking it apart. Eugene Melnyk, the owner of the Senators, is blaming Pierre Dorion, the GM, for this. Pierre Dorion is blaming the players for wanting to be traded, and I don't buy any of this. Mark Stone, Erik Karlsson, Matt Duchene, Kyle Turris, the list just grows and grows and grows. And the common theme is, according to Pierre Dorion, well, this player didn't want to re-sign with us. Well, this player didn't want to re-sign with this. But all we were hearing about before Erik Karlsson became a Shark, Erik Karlsson wants to be a Senator for life. Mark Stone wants to be a Senator for life. Matt Duchene is willing to take a pay cut to stay with the Senators. That's, who knows? We're not the agents for these players. Who knows what the truth is? However, I find it really hard to believe that it's the same theme over and over and over and over again. Come on, Eugene Melnyk. They probably wanted to leave because Melnyk and Dorion pushed them to a point where they just couldn't stand dealing with Melnyk and Dorion. Like, I don't think it was the city. I don't think it was the team. I just think it was these two knuckleheads in charge of the Senators. And you really have to feel bad for this franchise's fans, because they don't have a new arena and they want one, and they don't have a new owner and they don't have one, and they don't have a star player anymore, or a superstar player, or a semi-star player, or they just have Mikhail Bodker. That was for the Teal Town guys. They just have Mikhail Bodker, and they don't even have Julius Bergman anymore. That's how bad it is in Ottawa. And when you're pining for Julius Bergman, oh my goodness. But yeah, there is my rant there. Just Ottawa, give me a break. Vegas is now, I like what Craig Button said. He still thinks they're a first round and out team. I'm going to get back to that, but we'll see. Mark Stone definitely gives them a chance to get back up. You know, if Vegas gets hot, they could end up at the top of the conference, and then with a couple of favorable matchups, because as I've said before, there are only 6 teams in the Western Conference that want to win the Stanley Cup this year, and there are 9 other teams who really just want to get to April and go golfing, and nobody cares. And you will see that with the other trades that I'm not going to talk about. But one I am going to talk about here real quick. Nashville acquired 2 very good players today. They got Mikael Granlund from Minnesota and Wayne Simmons from Philadelphia. Mikael Granlund goes for Kevin Fiala. Both players, I really like both players. And Hockey Jerk had told me that he thought this was an absolute steal for Nashville. I don't believe it that way, because Kevin Fiala, yeah, he's underachieved, but yeah, he also came back from a broken leg in the playoffs, a horrific injury that I can't believe he came back so quickly, maybe too quickly, but he had a very good year on a line with Craig Smith last year. I can't remember who the other winger was, but this year it's been a little bit down. But Mikael Granlund on the same boat, just oozes talent. This kid, to me, this kid should be an 85-point player every year. Like, Mikael Granlund is amazing. He's got such great hands. He's defensively responsible. He's a smallish guy, but he's just so talented. And I just caught a tweet that I had sent out, I believe it was 5 years ago, sometime last week. And it said that for Team Finland, Mikael Granlund might have been the best player in the entire Olympics. And at that time, I also put, why can't he do this in the NHL? This is the player I expected to see in the NHL. And here we are 5 years later, and I still feel that way. I feel that Mikael Granlund is very good. He's going to be a nice pivot for the Predators behind Ryan Johansson, and that's a big part, though. Granlund doesn't have to be the guy in Minnesota. Granlund can be a guy in Nashville, and that might be what he needs. But Wayne Simmonds, man, some injury issues. His production is way down this year, but nevertheless, a player that I think most teams wanted. Really nice pickup. All they gave up was Ryan Hartman, who I'm trying to remember who Ryan Hartman was traded for last year, because I remember thinking, boy, Nashville gave up nothing to get Ryan Hartman. And so it was Hartman and a conditional fourth that essentially is a 2020 third round pick, because all Nashville has to do is win one round. And I'd like to think Nashville is going to do that. So basically Hartman and a third for Wayne Simmonds. Great deal. Nice deal for Philly in the sense that they at least got something, because it was looking very close to Wayne Simmonds somehow staying in Philadelphia, and just that would have been a total disaster, because Philly did their whole goodbye ceremony to Simmonds. And here it was. I heard it was 11:57 a.m. Pacific, and Wayne Simmonds was finally dealt. And it wasn't like watching Trade Center Wayne Simmonds, the announcement finally came in. I mean, it was down to the wire. And that's something that Ian Reed on the last show had mentioned. Ian said he thought some teams would kind of wait it out and see what happened. I like that Doug Wilson just did his usual thing on saying, I'm not waiting. This is the guy that I'm going after in Gustav Nyquist. Y'all have fun on trade deadline Monday. I've already got my guy. But you have to credit Nashville for really waiting things out. Wayne Simmonds, I mean, to me, I thought maybe it might be too many offers and everyone trying to one-up themselves. But nevertheless, what he brings is a power forward game, some grit, some sandpaper, but he can score. And again, it's like Granlund. Not having to be a top-line guy is going to do wonders for them, both of them. What I wonder, maybe overextending their role, is Kevin Hayes. Kevin Hayes was acquired by the Winnipeg Jets from the New York Rangers today. The Jets made 6 trades. I'm not going to go through all of them, but Kevin Hayes was traded for Brendan Lemieux, a first-round pick in 2020, and a conditional 2022 fourth-round pick that I guess comes in if the Jets win the Cup or something along those lines. But Jets. I know the Jets wanted to make a move. They're trying to change up the culture a little bit and kind of inspire some of their players. Patrick Laine, for example. I think what Nashville did in kind of rejuvenating their roster with Granlund and Simmonds, I think that's a step in the right direction. What the Jets did, I feel like, is answering to, how do I want to phrase this? So last year, the Jets acquired Paul Stastny at the trade deadline, and then they lost him to free agency. So that second line center hole kind of opened up again. And I think, first off, nobody really stepped up to take that spot. Like Brian Little kind of became the default number 2 center again, who is capable of doing that, but it's just not what I think they want, kind of like a 2A, 2B kind of situation. Why wouldn't you, to be honest? But I think they made this move to make a move. I'm not the biggest fan of Kevin Hayes. Sure, he's big. He's got a lot of points this year. I was surprised. I don't have this. I didn't put up the stats to remind myself, but I know he's got a lot more points than I expected. Maybe like 44 in 60 games, something along those lines. But he is so inconsistent. When you look at his stat line, it's like 3 assists here, 4 games, no points, an assist here, and then 2 more assists, and then 7 games, no points. Like, I don't buy him as being in a top 6 role. Whereas Pierre McGuire, I really hope Pierre McGuire misspoke. I know he spats off at the mouth, but so do I. But Pierre McGuire said, the Winnipeg Jets, and I quote, now have 2 elite centers on their roster who can slide up between the top 2 lines. Mark Scheifele? Sure. Kevin Hayes? Kevin Hayes, Mark Scheifele. Kevin Hayes, Mark Scheifele. What? Kevin Hayes, he's got like 14 goals. He's your elite center? I mean, yeah, I guess Joe Thorne's an elite center who only put up about 14 goals a year, but that's completely different. Oh, boy. So the Jets, the first round pick, I think, is the biggest thing they lose. I'm not completely sold on Brendan Lemieux. I think he's an okay player. I think it's an okay return for the Rangers, especially, but by comparison to Kevin Hayes, okay, thank you, Mike. 14, 28, and 42 points in 51 games. Yes, elite players. Boy, oh boy, oh boy. I hope that Kevin Hayes' agent in the offseason doesn't take that audio clip and share it with all the rest of the teams when he's trying to do contract negotiations. But hey, the Jets they're still a top team. They're still a contending team, nevertheless, despite the weird move. I do like the depth moves they picked up. They got Nathan Beaulieu for a 6th. They got Matt Hendricks for a 7th. They got Bogdan Kiselevich for a 7th. I know they moved Nick Patan out, but it's one of those things. They had enough. They have so many kids, so many good kids. Of course, Kyle Connor, he's still a kid and he's a top 6 player. And they got Mason Appleton and, oh geez, Roslovic, Jack Roslovic. They're going to be fine. Even if this trade for Hayes doesn't work out, they will be fine. That's the advantage that they have to making weird, I won't say questionable, just weird moves like this. So those are all powerhouses. Sharks, Vegas, Nashville, Winnipeg. What about Calgary? Calgary didn't do a whole lot. Calgary, which is good for the Sharks, unlike Vegas, Calgary didn't do a whole lot. They got Oscar Fantenberg, who is a player that I absolutely love, but it's like, I absolutely love this guy as a 3rd pair defenseman. I did hear some rumblings about Joachim Ryan. Pierre LeBrun was the one who broke that news that 4 teams were inquiring on Joachim Ryan from the Sharks. Now, Joachim Ryan hasn't seen ice in a very long time, although I suppose he will now that Erik Karlsson's out again. But not a player that I really want to part with, especially if there's no upgrade coming. So bringing in Oscar Fantenberg for Calgary, even though they're divisional rivals, it almost makes me think that Calgary is one of those teams that kicked the tires on Joachim Ryan. I'm just speculating. But it was good to hear that some teams were interested in him, because I hope that's kind of a kick to the Sharks that, hey, if they're going to upgrade the depth defense in the offseason. There is interest further down the road. But at the same time, I think it has to feel good if you're Joakim Ryan hearing, oh, some teams want me, and yet the Sharks still want me too. So, yes, I know that Tim Heed is playing for Erik Karlsson and not Joakim Ryan, but hey, you can never have enough defensemen during the playoffs. I always go back to the 05-06 Buffalo Sabres, where 5 of their top 6 defensemen were injured, and they still, I believe, got to game 7 of the second round, if not the conference finals, just while having an almost all Rochester defense. So you can never have enough defensemen. That's why I really wanted the Sharks to add another defenseman and Nyquist. Nice pickup again. But so Calgary sat there and said, you know what? We're not going to stray from our path. And a lot of teams did that. And I do have to commend Calgary. I know that, oh, geez, I can't remember Calgary's general manager's name right now, but he got up there and he said he was very happy to not have to trade Juuso Välimäki, who's their top defensive prospect, and rightfully so. Again, teams were reluctant, except for Vegas, were reluctant to trade their top prospects this year on one hand. And again, Sharks, thank you for not trading Chmelevski and Gambrell and Ferraro and Merkley and whatnot. But let's see, Vince, it really comes off like San Jose took care of this year with Nyquist, and today was spent building framework for moves this offseason. Excellent. Excellent. That's why you need to be a panelist, Vince G. I love that point. Totally true. Because the trade for Nyquist, of course, does help right now, obviously. But it's kind of like the Patrick Kane trade from last year. When you really want to look at this year's trade deadline, the acquisitions for this year were Evander Kane and Erik Karlsson. Evander Kane was a year ago, but that framework was set in place then to where it really didn't put a huge burden on Doug Wilson to go out and say, oh my goodness, I need to go get Mark Stone. Still wish we'd gotten him, but hey, you only have so many assets to move. But I think Doug Wilson did a great job. Man, I want to segue into the next Sharks trade, but real quick, wrapping up the league, because there's still a couple other things I have to mention. The Ducks, the Kings, the Oilers. Talking about Calgary taking a stance and saying, we're doing great, but we're not going to stray from our plan. Even Montreal, Marc Bergevin, all the crap that he gets, great job. All they did was pick up like Jordan Wheel, and they didn't move anybody off the roster, and they just said they did the Devils thing from last year, which was, sure, we might get into the playoffs, and it won't kill us if we don't. But we're not going to sacrifice the future for 5 games and you're out in the first round. Versus the Ducks, the Oilers, the Kings. Wow. I realized that the Oilers traded Cam Talbot a week and a half ago, which we broke live to you on this very channel, almost live, 2 minutes after the fact. But after that, I was expecting, okay, here comes a flurry of moves, and my foreseen Ryan Spooner trade was basically the only thing they did. The Ducks at least traded Brandon Montour yesterday for Brendan Gooley and a first-round pick, conditional first-round pick, where I believe it's the higher of the two that the Sabres have between the Blues and the Sharks picks. Obviously going to be the Blues. But so that was a nice move, I think, for both teams, because I think the world of Brandon Montour, even though I think he's making a ridiculous amount of money for what he hasn't proven yet in the NHL. But a player I really do think can be, I think he's going to complement Rasmus Dahlin greatly in a couple of years, because he is a pure offensive powerhouse. When I say powerhouse, I don't mean like Brent Burns, like I'm going to be the Incredible Hulk out here powerhouse, but just Montour really is just a slick player offensively. And I think that's why he fell out of favor in Anaheim, because with John Gibson standing on his head all year, I think part of Bob Murray's internal debate was, okay, why is John Gibson having to stand on his head? And pretty much because nobody wants to play defense unless you're Hampus Lindholm in Anaheim. So Montour was out. They get Brendan Gooley, who's a comparable player, an AHL All-Star, mobile, great skater. He was in the fastest skater competition in the AHL that All-Star weekend, and they still get a first-round pick. So nice move for Anaheim, nice move for Buffalo. But moving on, the Dallas Stars, oh boy, poor Dallas. They're losers, not in trade deadline, not because they didn't try. Dallas Stars on Saturday acquired Matt Zuccarello from the Rangers. I don't remember what they gave up. Doesn't matter at this point. They also got Ben Lovejoy from the Devils, but Matt Zuccarello in his debut for the Stars last night, 2 assists and broke his arm. Matt Zuccarello blocked a shot off the arm. It's broken. He's out a minimum of 4 weeks. Dallas won't have to worry about it probably if they make the playoffs, but they got Zuccarello to get into the playoffs. And now they're back to square one, plus Ben Lovejoy. So, oh man, Matt Zuccarello is a player that I love. I've loved this guy since his Sweden days, playing for Linköping. I believe it was for Linköping. God, now I feel embarrassed that I don't remember that. But he was Matt Zuccarello Ozen, and then he was with the Rangers, and then he left the Rangers because John Tortorella doesn't know how to handle European players, and Artemi Panarin. And then Zuccarello came back and has had this amazing career, and now goes to Dallas, breaks his arm, breaks my heart, broke Henrik Lundqvist's heart. Did you guys see Henrik Lundqvist's interview last night? Because if you want to get the feels, just watch that. Lundqvist was completely speechless. He literally was speechless and just sobbing, and oh man, so heartbreaking. Thank you, Vince, for helping me out with that. Conditional second, conditional third for Matt Zuccarello. I swore I had written that down. Steve Cropper says, yes, he got teary. I got teary watching that interview. It's definitely worth seeing, though, if you just need that like heart-to-heart moment of your day. Meanwhile, last time on Teal Tinted Glasses, oh my God, the Columbus Blue Jackets got Matt Duchene, and they're keeping Artemi Panarin and Sergei Bobrovsky. And what else are going to do? Fast forward to today. Okay, so Saturday they got Ryan Zingle from Ottawa because they decided Duchene wasn't enough. And the funny thing about that was when the Sharks were playing the Columbus Blue Jackets on Saturday, Randy Hahn mentioned Anthony Duclair's name, and I was like thinking, oh man, Anthony Duclair, that guy gets traded every year. How did I not mention his name on the last show as guys that must be traded? And certainly, sure enough, Anthony Duclair goes to the Ottawa Senators with 2 second-round picks for Zingle. But Columbus, that's not all. Everybody in Toronto thought they were getting Adam McQuaid, but they were wrong because Columbus was getting Adam McQuaid. And to top that off, they got Keith Kincaid from the Devils because more goaltending. Wait, really? Okay, apparently Mikhail Granlund's wife was in labor when he was traded, so that's right up there with Jordan Staal being traded in the middle of his wedding. Wow, what a pull, Vince. But anyway, back to Columbus. Really just stocking up. You know, I said it's time for Columbus to make a push, even if they don't get to the Cup Finals, even if they don't get to the Conference Finals. Just win a round and put some faith in your fan base. I mean, do everything that Ottawa is not doing, and so far they are by stealing Ottawa players. But you know, Columbus was so good at the trade deadline that they both acquired Julius Bergman and got rid of him. They must have been watching Teal Tinted Glasses on Friday and heard me say that Julius Bergman already has a handshake deal with Frölunda and was like, Oh, crap. Really? Okay, let's pawn him off, for McQuaid and Bergman. It was a couple of picks that went with Bergman, so it's not like the Rangers are stuck with nobody for McQuaid. But boy, oh boy, what a whirlwind of a 72 hours Mr. Julius Bergman has had. Basically joining 4 teams, if you count Frölunda. And still not as much as that basketball player that I guess was on 6 teams last week or whatever. But yeah, Jarmo Kekalainen, like Mike says in the chat, Jarmo wants it all. Yet to be seen if Bob can perform. And that's going to segue to what I want to talk about. I do need a drink here for a second. Water for now, wine for later. Red wine. But in the meantime, tell a friend, tell them that I'm on doing this shindig for already like over a half hour, which was where I wanted to cut off at. But hey, we're having fun, right? Please subscribe, tell a friend, get that bell ringy thingy, so that the next time I decide to just hop on and do a show, because I'm spontaneous like that. I'm crazy. In fact, let me just trade Joe Pavelski and Joe Thornton right now. This is why I'm not a GM. A couple other moves, because the Eastern Conference was pretty quiet, unless you were Columbus or the Rangers. The Eastern Conference was pretty quiet. But Marcus Johansson goes to the Boston Bruins because the Bruins basically missed out on everyone. They wanted like Mark Stone, like Ryan Zingle, like I don't think they were in on Zuccarello, but they were in on Jonathan Huberdeau, I believe, and that never transpired. So the Bruins got Marcus Johansson for a second and a fourth. Decent pickup. I like the player. Another guy, kind of like a Gustav Nyquist, where he can kind of fill multiple roles. So not bad to have guys like that. The Swiss Army knives, or in this case, a Swedish Army knife. The Penguins, however, got Erik Gudbranson from Vancouver for Tanner Pearson. My first thought was, oh boy, well, Pittsburgh lost Chris Letang and Brian Dumoulin during the outdoor game on Saturday due to injury, and they played almost the whole game, I think, with 4 defensemen. So Gudbranson fills a need just because he's a body. I don't know how... He's considered kind of an old era defenseman. He's not that mobile. He clutches and grabs and hits and whatnot. He's not a bad defenseman, though. I do think he's more than what people say. But still, I guess Pittsburgh's hoping he'll be the new Ron Hainsey for them. I don't really think those players are comparable. Yeah. But Tanner Pearson, no loss to Pittsburgh. If you saw the game for the Sharks against the Penguins last week, another one I should have called. I should have just stated it, because I remember Tanner Pearson looking like a goof trying to fight people in that Evander Kane scrum and the Sidney Crosby, Brendan Dillon, all that stuff. And Pearson was just looking like a chump. And then later in the game, Joe Thornton has the puck, and Tanner Pearson does the Mirko Mueller, oh, wait, was I supposed to guard that player? To which Randy Hahn, to his shock, said, and Joe Thornton just skates right by Tanner Pearson. And my first thought, audibly at my TV, was, well, this is the last game we're going to see of Tanner Pearson in gold and black. It's like, if I'm Jim Rutherford, I trade him tomorrow. Like, if that's how he's going to do a forecheck or defend his zone or whatever, peace. So Vancouver decided, yeah, what the heck? We'll take Tanner Pearson. But yeah, Vince, couple of panic trades for Pittsburgh. I agree, because they also got Chris Weidman, who, talking about bouncing around, Chris Weidman on his 5th team this year. Pittsburgh, Edmonton, Florida, Ottawa. I thought there was another team in there via waivers. Might be wrong. I don't know. But boy, oh boy, I hope he's been taking Uber to all of these new destinations. I think he even played in the minors at one point. Cliff Poo, this is the last one I really want to get to as far as around the league. I'm going to get back to the Sharks here in a second. Actually, I'll relate it to the Sharks. So last week on Friday, I believe it was, maybe Thursday, the Sharks traded Vincent Praplin to the Florida Panthers for future considerations. And earlier today, future considerations was traded by the Panthers to the Carolina Hurricanes for Cliff Pu. Well, Cliff Pu, besides having a funny name and having a very, very solid junior career, he was the key piece in the Jeff Skinner to Buffalo trade that happened over the summer. Now Cliff Pu has 6 points in 44 games in the American Hockey League with a cup of coffee in the ECHL, and has gone from being the player traded for Jeff Skinner to the player traded for future considerations that may end up next year being in the Sharks organization as the future considerations return for Vincent Praplin. I don't know. I'm just speculating, but wow, what a fall. Holy moly. Okay. We'll get here. Mike in the chat says Boston apparently tried to get Gustav Nyquist, but he wouldn't waive his no trade clause. I believe that because I did hear that Gustav Nyquist waived his no trade clause to go to the Sharks. That's something I should have mentioned earlier. I guess he has a tie with Erik Karlsson, which that has to bode well to me for Erik Karlsson possibly re-signing, because the fact that Erik Karlsson may, as reported by Kevin Kurz, may have had something to do with convincing Gustav Nyquist to come to San Jose. If Erik Karlsson hated it here, I don't think he would tell one of his buddies to come here. So again, that's the Teal Tinted Glasses part of the show, which is Erik Karlsson loves San Jose. Maybe he'll come back. We hope, please. I want your jersey. Yeah, good call there, Mike. And for trades that almost happened, I also heard that Minnesota almost traded Jason Zucker to Calgary. So talking about Calgary feeling good about themselves, they maybe not entirely. I don't think the full details came out, but apparently something broke down where it wasn't that Calgary wasn't interested in Jason Zucker. They just ran out of time. So that's going to be an interesting storyline, I think, for the off season, maybe even for the draft. But the Sharks, they got Nyquist. I've said it a few times here. Of course, if you're just tuning in, thank you. Talked about Gustav Nyquist earlier. Sharks also got Jonathan Dahlen from the Vancouver Canucks. I've mentioned Vancouver got Tanner Pearson on their way out. From that organization was Jonathan Dahlen. Talking about Karlssons, I know I said Erik Karlsson. I've mentioned Melker Karlsson. The Sharks had Linus Karlsson, who they drafted in the 3rd round this past draft. If you have been following the show over the many years, during the 2018 draft recap video we were really puzzled by the Linus Karlsson pickup. And I know some people were excited about him at the prospect camp, but I really just wasn't impressed. I didn't really think there was much to him, and I'm going to try and pull up his stats real quick because I forgot to do so before I jumped on here. But I really like the pickup for Jonathan Dahlen, and I want to thank the SJ Barracuda Twitter for giving me the hat tip, because besides the fact that last night I was the one who tweeted Dylan Gambrell should be wearing number 7 now that Gustav Nyquist is with the Sharks, and he is. Jonathan Dahlen should be wearing number 22, just like his father did for the Sharks many, many years ago. Yes, the year was 1994. The Sharks got Ulf Dahlen from the Dallas Stars. I believe it was for Doug Smolek. Puck guy, I swear to God, you need to be watching. I've already called you out once. Am I correct? Was it Ulf Dahlen for Doug Smolek? I don't think anybody else was involved. But Ulf Dahlen was, I guess you could say, he was my second favorite Sharks player in history. Sergei Makarov was my first favorite player for the Sharks. But my first Sharks jersey that I ever wore was an Ulf Dahlen 22. Before I even realized that 22 was my favorite number. That was my guy. I loved it. So I did kind of have a homer thing going during the 2016 entry draft when Jonathan Dahlen was eligible to be drafted and projected to be around a second-round pick. I think I had him 36th on my board. And when he went to Vancouver, heck, didn't I even say that on the last show about how Vancouver got all the guys that I wanted? That might have been an off show topic. But anyway, the Sharks got Jonathan Dahlen, and let me give you a scouting report on him. He's a very good skater. He is a two-way player for sure. I did watch him a little bit for Utica just last night. I was trying to scout Olli Juolevi, and Jonathan Dahlen was out there, regular power play shifts, definitely likes to shoot the puck. He's a left wing, and I just think that he reminds me a lot of what Francis Perron has been giving the Barracuda this year. It hasn't quite worked out as well as everyone, myself included, thought for Dahlen in Utica. But Utica's had some weird stuff going on this year. So dang it. I'm getting myself distracted. But Jonathan Dahlen, I think now he comes into a new environment. I got to think he's super excited to be playing for his father's former team, even though his father played for a few teams, but one of them. And it's going to be really cool. He's going to get his father's number 22, my number 22. So just really cool to now have his kid. At this point now, let's just next trade deadline, let's get Jacob Ragnarsson for like a 6th or something from the Rangers. Linus Karlsson. Okay. So not a player that I wasn't like super excited about in the draft. And this season so far in the Allsvenskan, which is the second tier level of Swedish men's pro hockey. Linus Karlsson, 4 goals, 13 assists in 48 games. That usually says to me he's probably playing a third line role for them. Gosh, who was it? There was someone else that I wanted to. Oh, Cliff Poo. I was just going to say maybe one thing for Florida's sake is Cliff Poo was playing bottom 6 minutes for Charlotte because Charlotte's just been killing it. They didn't really need a guy like Cliff Poo, so maybe more ice time will help him in the long run. Linus Karlsson, third line role for Carls Krona. But I didn't see it with him. And Jonathan Dahlen, don't know how he's going to pan out, but to me, this is capital gains right away. You get a guy who is in North America, a guy who's still super young. I think he's like 21 years old. I'll pull it up right now. And yeah, he's 21. Yeah, he's 21. And a second-round pick in 2016. Karlsson, third-round pick in 2019. 2016 was a super deep draft. So I like this upside a lot more. He's going to replace Vincent Praplin, no problem. The Barracuda have had issues with their wings, their left side particular. Jaden Hobgawaks just hasn't worked out so well as a pro. I really questioned it just because he is so small. He's had spurts of brilliance and he can skate like the wind, but it just hasn't worked out and he's been scratched lately. I don't think he's hurt. I might be wrong there. But now Jonathan Dahlen, who does have 8 power play goals, and he joins a Barracuda power play that ranks 23rd in the AHL. Not very good, only less than 17%. So it fits a lot of holes. So this, guys, gals, for the first time that, now granted, the Barracuda have only been around 4 years, but I'm including Worcester, Cleveland, and all those other Heritage Night teams that we've had. When was the last time, if ever, that the Sharks and the Barracuda got better at the trade deadline? Usually it's one or the other. The Barracuda suffer because they're the feeder team for the Sharks. You lose Danny O'Regan, for example. But both teams improved. It's astonishing. And both teams improved at the price of a second-round pick. possibly another second-round pick or third-round pick. And Linus Karlsson. Great job, Doug Wilson. Round of applause, please, guys. Round of applause for Doug Wilson. Because I'm sure in June, if the Sharks don't win the cup, everybody's going to want his head. But for right now, he deserves a round of applause. And I think that, that staff is really putting out strong representation here. Someone in the chat is talking about the Condors. Cool. Actually, Race Fan rocks. I'm glad you're here. Thank you for that. I was going to bring up that the Bakersfield Condors, after tonight, a victory over the Tucson Roadrunners, they have now won 17 games in a row. As much as I thought Norfolk doesn't ever have to worry about their all-time winning streak in professional sports, what the heck, Bakersfield? Oh, my goodness. So, the GM of the year is the Bakersfield Condors GM. Sure. No, I think you're talking about Doug Wilson. But Race Fan rocks. Real quick. This is total off topic, guys. This is a one-on-one between me and Race Fan rocks as I got him here. I know you said it's not Dave Gust, it's David Gust. And you called me out on the one of the recent shows I was on. I swear it's Dave Gust. But correct me if I'm wrong. If it really is David, let me know. Okay. Sidebar over. So that was the trade deadline, guys. I want to know, who are your winners and losers of the deadline? Sure, Sharks are a winner. I gotta think the Sharks are a winner. But what about the other teams? What are your thoughts here? Rounding out the AHL here, while you guys send in your comments and whatnot, Lucas Radil was assigned to the Barracuda today. However, what happens every trade deadline is that players need to be on the AHL roster at the moment of the trade deadline. So in order to qualify for the Calder Cup playoffs. So Lucas Radil was assigned sometime this morning, and then after 12 o'clock, he was recalled to the Sharks. So don't worry, he's not really demoted. If you look at the transaction wire for today, every team has like 2 or 3 players that they sent down and called up in one day, creating a nightmare for the NHL Central Services. But the AHL trade deadline, because it's different from the NHL deadline, this is what is called the clear day. The AHL trade deadline is Thursday, and I don't anticipate the Barracuda making any more moves. They did sign TJ Hensick a week and a half ago. Love that pickup. We really haven't talked much about the Barracuda lately on Teal Tinted Glasses, just for time constraints. And speaking of time constraints, I'm at an hour, so I got to get going, guys. But TJ Hensick, nice pickup. He picked up a goal and I think 2 assists against Iowa over the last couple of games. I did not see what happened in Sunday's game against the Heat, but I do know the Barracuda lost. But they're back in action tomorrow night again against the Iowa Wild. That is a home that is a home game at 7:05. I wish I could attend to say hello to my new favorite number 22, Jonathan Dahlen. However, I have a 9 o'clock hockey game myself, so I won't be able to attend, but I will be coming out to some upcoming games. So, of course, please look out for the number 22 jersey, or a turtleneck, or a stupid loud guy chanting "Glass is broken" out in section 109. So let's see. Let me get to the chat here real quick. Winners of the IKEA Future Sponsorship goes to the San Jose Sharks, according to Skylar Greenberg. Yes, that is true, because they got Gustav Nyquist. They have Jonathan Dahlen, Erik Karlsson, Melker Karlsson. Apparently, Linus Karlsson did not know how to build furniture, and that's why he is now traded. But Tim Heed, Joachim Ryan, technically... Douglas Murray is always around the building. Nicholas Sundstrom's a scout. So yeah, things are good if you're a Swede in San Jose. And actually, one other thing, the reason why Ulf Dahlen is the reason why I love my Swedish hockey players. So that's another one right there. Loser is Tomas Hertl, as his attempt to get more check failed. I don't know where that came from, but that's hilarious. Michael Haley will be back. And, Michael Haley, to me, this is why I couldn't understand why the hoopla over picking him up. He was picked up for absolutely nothing. It was a free pickup. He's there to fill a role, and that's about it. And again, if the Barracuda, well, now it won't matter because he did not get sent down today, because plus he would have had to clear waivers. But Michael Haley could have been a nice addition for the Barracuda if they went that route. But really, he's there. He's not going to see playoff time. Even if there are injuries among the forward core, you're likely to see guys like Gambrell. Rourke Chartier is finally finding his stride with the Barracuda. He's looking good again. He will probably see a call up there the last couple of games, and then possibly the playoffs, depending on how the Barracuda go. Suomela, I refuse to call him Suomela. Antti Suomela, who I am surprised was not traded. He's another guy who would probably get the call up. There are many options over Michael Haley when it comes to the playoffs. Or, hey, if a series like Calgary is getting really ridiculous, they could throw in Haley for 5 minutes just to keep guys like what's his face, Tkachuk. Oh my God, I named the other two Tkachuk. Matthew Tkachuk. There we go. Matthew Tkachuk, honest. Travis Hamonic. Oh geez, guys like that. But other than that, I would not worry about Mr. Haley. Blue Jackets are winners according to Race Fan Rocks. Oh, what's up? He says it's David Gust. Okay, all right. Blue Jackets. I'm with you there. Hockey Jerk, I know I've mentioned him a lot because I talked to him today. He says Nashville is the winner. I will say Nashville is the winner in the sense of, and don't hate me, I swear, I still got my teal on. I still got my orange. I still got my Ryan Carpenter Hockey is for Everyone jersey, as it is. Hockey is for Everyone month. But I still have Nashville as winning the Stanley Cup this year. With the pickups they got today, and this is all stemming from 2 years ago. That's the only reason. I said 2 years ago that Nashville would win in 2019. I just felt it. And every time I feel it, the team that I pick always loses in the conference finals anyway. So Sharks fans, it might be okay. The Sharks might beat Nashville in the conference finals because I predict Nashville to win the Stanley Cup. But Columbus is definitely a winner, if for nothing else, the fact that it's progress, the fact that they're finally going to go for it and can truly go for it. There have been other years where Columbus tried to go for it and then they played Pittsburgh, and they still could play Pittsburgh here in the playoffs. But this year they have a legit shot at toppling anybody. I thought they were going to beat Washington in the playoffs last year. So there you go. There's my prediction. I thought Columbus was going to beat Washington in the playoffs, and things were looking great for 2.5 periods. And then Washington decided, oh yeah, we're going to win the cup this year. So does Donskoy get waived? No way. Even if it was the offseason, Jonas Donskoy is not getting waived. He has value elsewhere. The thing is that, oh, dang, I didn't get to your Bobrovsky point earlier. I'll get to that, and then I'm going to sign off. The thing is that there are a lot of players who are maligned by Sharks fans who are completely revered by every other hockey market. Justin Braun. Everyone loves him there. Everywhere else except in San Jose. Patrick Marleau. Everyone loves the guy except in San Jose. Jonas Donskoy, he's becoming that guy. Melker Karlsson earlier in the year, where Kevin Kurz stupidly told Melker Karlsson, "You realize everybody hates you on social media." Don't know what he was thinking telling him that, but he has a lot of respect around the league. So no, Kevin Labanc, another guy. Don't ask about waivers. He's not getting waived. So on that note, back to the Sergei Bobrovsky thing. A lot of people have been down about Martin Jones this year, rightfully so, because he does still have among the worst numbers among starting goaltenders in the league. Goaltending numbers, I've said before, are down across the board. But when you look at everyone, all the teams goaltending, who is satisfied with their goaltending? Sometimes I feel like we just need to lay off a little bit. You can still get frustrated, but it's not always the goaltending. Sometimes, as a defenseman, sometimes it's the defenseman's responsibility to defend. So if Martin Jones is not cutting it to everyone's standards, or to the Sharks standards, maybe the defense needs to step their game up and overcome that. We saw it with Chicago with Antti Niemi. He was a mediocre goalie, and they played against Philly, who had no goaltending because their top two goaltenders got hurt, and they were stuck with Michael Layton. And the only reason Philly got that far was because their defense stepped up and played better than the goaltending that they had. It's time for the Sharks defense to do that themselves. The only teams who have fan bases that like their goaltending are Tampa Bay, Boston, Vegas to an extent if they don't burn Fleury to the ground, which they probably will, and Anaheim, who's not even going to the playoffs. 4 teams like their goaltending. Connor Hellebuck, what's wrong with him? Calgary, we never like our goaltending ever. The Sharks, we never like our goaltending ever. It goes on and on and on, and let's just see how things play out. It's going to be exciting. Things are good in Sharks land. We're near the top of the conference. We're not in the bottom 9. So, yeah, the goaltending does need to step up, but I think everyone needs to step up when it comes to the playoffs. That's the only way you win the cup. Everybody steps up. So, yeah, the Sharks fans need a fall guy, but you know what? I think the Sharks fans also just need to kind of enjoy things sometime. And then, hey, maybe that's why Michael Haley got brought back. Maybe he really is the fall guy. So you know what? Even though I said lay off of him, if everyone needs to take it out on someone, just take it out on poor Michael Haley. Because when he gets his Stanley Cup ring in the summer, he's not going to care, right? Okay, so that is the show for this evening. Boy, oh boy, I'm going to have no voice in the morning. But thank you all for watching again, especially, I really extra appreciate it when I do the solo shows because I really like having someone to bounce things off of, and you guys are great. The support is wonderful. I love it when you say hi. Boy, oh boy, I cannot remember the dude's name who said hi to me at the last Barracuda game I was at, but he literally just stopped me on the concourse. I think his name was Daniel Donald. Shoot, I'm sorry, buddy. I don't remember your name. But he just stopped me on the concourse and said, "Hey, I really appreciate all the things you do for the Barracuda and the Sharks." And I was like, wow, I mean, I just do podcasts. I'm not doing announcing. I'm not doing anything professionally. I'm not getting paid to do this. It's all just out of fandom. So to have fans like you who appreciate the things that Ian does, Hockey Jerk, myself, and the other podcasters, it's wonderful. So thank you all for your support. Please subscribe to the channel if you're new to the show, if you're listening for the first time and you decided that you didn't hate me tonight, that's awesome. I'll see you around the tank. I think I'm going to be going to Arrowhead Pond. Wow, it's not called Arrowhead Pond anymore. It's called Honda Center. I think I'm going to Honda Center on the 22nd. So I'm going to invade. Maybe I'll do a podcast from the Honda Center because actually their fan base is really cool and the people who work at their arena are really nice. So I probably could do something there. But again, I'm at Kevin Lacy 22. Follow me on the Twitter, and of course follow at Ian Blogs Hockey, at hockey_jerk10, and at Teal Tinted Pod. So for everyone who's not here tonight, I'm Kevin Lacy. Have a great night, and go Gustav Nyquist and the Sharks.